Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's immigration chat. I am attorney Ebony Anuforo. I'm an immigration attorney located in New Jersey. However, I represent clients in all 50 states and around the world with regards to immigration law matters. Now, today, I have a topic that I want to talk about, and it's about red flags. Yes, red flags within the marriage immigration process, right? So if you're applying for your green card based on a marriage to either a U.S. citizen or a U.S. permanent resident, I want to talk about some of the red flags that could kind of affect your case and potentially lead to a denial. Okay, so first I'm going to have a sip of my coffee. I don't know what you guys are drinking this morning, but for me, in the mornings, I like to have coffee. Sorry about that. But I need it. Anyway, back to the discussion. So if you're applying for your green card based on a marriage to a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, right? One of the most important things that immigration is going to want to see and focus on is whether or not your marriage is bona fide. Now, I know some of you, if you're watching these videos, you probably are familiar with the word, but if you're not familiar with the word bona fide, it's a legal term. And it simply means that immigration wants to know that your marriage is actually real and genuine. So that means you married your spouse for love with the intention of building a future together and not to secure immigration benefits. Okay. So they take this very seriously. So when they're reviewing your file and they're reviewing your documents, they're going to want to look at the evidence you provide that shows that you are actually in a real marriage, right? That this is going to be a marriage for the long haul, right? I mean, it doesn't always end up that way, right? Marriages don't always work out, but the intention when you got married was to build the future. Okay. So as the petitioner, as the beneficiary of the green card, it is your responsibility to provide evidence because you bear the burden of proof. You have to provide evidence to USCIS that this marriage, this relationship is in fact real. Now, there are some things that could come up in your case, right? That could be a red flag to the USCIS officer that is reviewing your file. And I want to talk about some of them. I might not get to go into detail with regards to each and every one of these red flags, but I do want to mention some of them just so that you have that in the back of your mind, okay? So one red flag that could come up is age difference, right? If you are married and one person in the relationship is significantly older than the other, that could potentially look like a red flag, right? It's not uncommon for people to marry with difference in age, or like I've had clients with a significant age difference, and we were able to provide strong bona fides and they turned out fine, but it could look suspicious to USCIS if one party is significantly older than the other, right? It could look as if maybe you're trying to, use the immigration system to get a green card, right? That's possible. So that's something to consider. Another red flag that could come up or raise eyebrows with USCIS is that you don't have the same language. So if there's one person who doesn't speak English, the other person speaks English, that could be a red flag. I don't think that that's a terrible or something that's really horrible, but it is something that could come up where they might wonder, okay, if you guys are not speaking the same language, it's one thing if the person that speaks English also speaks the other person's language. But if you speak two different languages, how are you communicating, right? This could be suspicious to USCIS. So that's something to consider. Different religion, right? Different religion could be a red flag because for a lot of people, your religion is a big part of who you are. It's a big part of how you view the world, your morals, how you live your life. And if you have a couple that comes together and they have two different religions, it could raise a red flag. it happens a lot. I know people who are married and they have they practice two different religions and they have wonderful marriages. So it does not mean that your marriage isn't real, but it could raise a red flag to the person who's reviewing your case. Some other things that could raise red flags: if there's a difference in social class, race, cultural background, kind of ties into the religion a little bit. Those are some of the things that could kind of look suspicious to USCIS, but again, it will go back to the evidence that you are able to prove to kind of counter that. Another thing that people don't really consider when they're applying for their marriage-based green card is that if you provide evidence that seems a little bit too perfect, I know that's strange, right? Like, you want to provide perfect evidence. But what do I mean by that? If your evidence just seems like you're providing too much evidence, like an overwhelming amount of evidence, where it's kind of could look suspicious, like, are they covering something up? Like, are they giving us so much evidence because there's something here, right? And I think it's very important that you provide strong evidence, right? You want to show financial ties, you want to show commingling of funds, you want to show pictures, all of that. But I think that there has to be a balance. If you provide so much evidence that it looks kind of overwhelmingly perfectly manicured, that could be a red flag to someone reviewing your file. So I think you want to balance out the information that you're providing to USCIS. And also it helps when you do go on an interview, if you're called for an interview, to provide new evidence, right? Right. If you are able to provide new evidence, like then the ones that you submitted initially, that will actually prove more of a bona fide marriage because it shows that there's been growth in the relationship. Okay. A red flag that could come up is that you don't live together, right? Now, I know that there are some couples who don't live together, right? Some couples work in different states. Maybe there's a couple who travels for work. Maybe there's someone who's deployed. There's many different reasons why a couple might not live together, right? As a married couple. However, if you don't have any evidence showing that this is why you don't live together and you just really just don't live in the same house, this could raise a red flag to immigration that you guys are committing immigration fraud, and you could be denied. So it's very important that you show that you are living with your spouse, and you can provide evidence of a joint lease agreement. You can provide evidence of mortgage statements, bills going to the same address, pictures in the home together, whatever it is, affidavits from yourself, from family or friends who are familiar with the fact that you live together. But not living in the same home or having the same address is a red flag, and you want to keep that in mind. Another red flag, and I get this question a lot actually, is getting married very soon after you met. Okay. Now, we've all heard stories of people who have eloped. They've gone to Vegas. They went ahead and get married. They fell in love and they're like, hey, let's just do this. They go to the justice of the peace and so forth. I understand that. And that's wonderful because some of those stories turn out to be great love stories. And, you get to look back and say, wow, they took this really big risk and it turned out to be great. But for the purpose of immigration, that is a red flag. So getting married soon after you met could be a red flag in the eyes of the person reviewing your file. Where you're going to want to kind of cure this issue is if you're able to provide down the line at some point, hopefully at the time that you submit your application, bona fides that show an intention to actually build the relationship, an intention to actually stay married for the long haul, right? So if you got married very soon after meeting, I really encourage you working with an immigration attorney to talk about how you can really present this case. You're going to want to write a strong declaration from the both of you, from people who know your relationship, because this could potentially lead to a denial if you're not able to prove that this marriage is in fact bona fide. Another red flag that could come up is if one person got divorced and right after you got married. So like getting married soon after the divorce, right? That could be a red flag as well. It could kind of look suspicious. So it ties back to providing strong evidence of the bona fide relationship. The next thing I want to talk about, next red flag that I think is very important for me to mention is when a petitioner has a history of filing previous spousal immigration petitions. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that you, for example, I'm not saying that if you were married before and you filed a green card for your spouse, and that marriage didn't work and you got divorced and now you fell in love with somebody else who happens to be undocumented and you're filing a green card for them as well. I'm not saying that you cannot do that. It is fine. You're free to do that. But what I am saying is that it could be suspicious. It could be suspicious, one, on the timing of the filings, right? And that's another video. I'm going to talk about that because I think that's a video in itself. But if you have a history of doing this 1, 2, or 3 times, it will raise a red flag. And in those situations, you want to be able to really prove strong bona fides, strong evidence that this relationship is in fact real. And please work with an immigration attorney before you apply. Okay. The next red flag that I want to talk about is, and this is kind of sad because I actually deal with clients who have this issue. If you come from a country that your country has a history of immigration fraud, right? That could just unfortunately be a red flag in the eyes of an immigration attorney. And when I say that could be a red flag in the eyes of the USCIS officer that is going to be reviewing your file, right? And when I say red flag, I mean that they will more likely, because you come from this country that has a history of having marriage fraud cases or having a history of cases that are more suspicious. I hate to use that word, but I can't think of a better word at this time. In that case, in those situations, your case could be looked at with a fine-tooth comb. So what does that mean? Immigration could really look closely to your particular case just because you're from a country that has a history of having marriage fraud cases. So if you're in that situation, I would recommend that you really prepare a strong case and petition from the beginning. I don't believe in sending shell applications where we just send what we have just to get it out there and then figure it out later. I don't like that. I like to work with my clients to provide as much evidence, not overwhelming amount of evidence, like I mentioned earlier, but as much evidence as possible to prove a bona fide marriage from the beginning, telling a story. And I did a video about this before, where you want to show a true love story. The whole purpose of the marriage-based green card is to give real couples an opportunity to be together in the US. So it's your responsibility to show that story, to be able to present that to immigration, right? So when I work with my clients, it's one of the things that we really try to do is we want to present a bona fide love story with the application so that the person on the other end that's reviewing it can see that, okay, this marriage is actually real, right? Because that's important. That's what you need to do. You need to be able to prove that it's real. Okay. So I wanted to talk about how do you deal with red flags, but I think I kind of covered that. If you have any of these red flags, quote unquote red flags, it does not mean that your marriage is not real, right? If you are 20 years apart, it doesn't mean that you guys are not really in love and you're married for real. If you don't live together because someone works in a different state, it does not mean that your marriage is not real, right? But you have to be able to prepare for the fact that this could pose a red flag, that this could look suspicious with USCIS. So what I would recommend is making sure that you prepare yourselves with your spouse, right? You guys have to work together. So if you are at the interview stage, you want to make sure that you prepare before the interview. That's reviewing your application, going over the facts of your case, working with an immigration attorney. When you submit your paperwork ahead of your interview, you want to make sure that you submit really strong evidence I think a very good way to show that your marriage is real, if you can show joint evidence of commingling of finances. They like to see that, because if you have committed to each other financially, right, that is a good sign that this is a real marriage. So you want to show joint bank accounts, right, that you use, that you're regularly using, not a bank account that you just buy coffee occasionally, not a bank account with like $20 in it. You want to show a bank account that is your operating agreement. This is where you pay your bills from. This is where you pay your rent from. This is where you pay school fees for the kids. If you have kids, this is where you get your nails done. This is something that you guys use. You pay your Netflix subscription from, right? Every month, right? Not just 1 month or 2 months after you got married. You want to be able to show, okay, we've been using this account over and over, and this is the account we use to run our lives. You also want to show that you filed your taxes jointly as a married couple. That is also helpful. That shows that your marriage is bona fide. You have joint utility bills together, right? You've traveled together. You've gone on vacation. A lot of couples go on vacations. So if you have proof of your itinerary, proof of vacation pics, even if you don't go on vacation, but proof that you are hanging out with family and friends, anything that's going to show that this is a genuine relationship, people know about it, you are building your future together. That's going to help you overcome some of the red flags that you might have in your case. Okay? Now, I just hope that you found these tips helpful. If you have any questions about applying for the marriage-based green card, you can give us a call. Our number is 201-565-0099. You can also click the link to set up a case evaluation so we could talk about your cases. If you would like us to review the facts around your case. If you have a question about any other type of immigration matter, you can also give us a call. You can use the same number to text us and reach out to us on WhatsApp. We also have a newly formed Facebook group, okay, the Immigrant Blueprint. So you can join us there. And in that group, we answer a lot of the frequently asked questions that we get about immigration topics. We are also going to be hosting weekly webinars in the immigration Facebook group as well. So I'd love for you to join that so you can take part in that. And also, I'm going to be giving out free case evaluations to 2 lucky people every week who are in the group that they can use for themselves or they can use for a loved one. So if you're interested in joining our Facebook group, click the link. You'll see it in the description, the bio, wherever you're watching this, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, just find the link and you'll be able to join our Facebook group. Thank you for tuning in. If you know anyone that would benefit from this video, please share it. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. We love to have you, and share the videos if you know anyone that would benefit from this information. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take care.